Hello everyone and welcome back to today's video. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing to you exactly how to make a Facebook form, right? So in the last video, we quickly touched on how to make your Facebook ad campaign. Now, this is going to be a continuation of that, and today we are going to be focusing on Instaforms. Now, once you've created your Facebook ad campaign, you want to come down to the ad level. And once you're here, you'll see obviously your Facebook ad creative, the description, the headline, description, everything like that, right? You want to come down to here. Now, Instaforms, they are very good at capturing lead data, right? And why you want to use a lead form rather than just going to a messenger or Instagram chat is you actually get the customer's information, like their email, like their phone number, right? And that can help you in the future make lookalike audiences, right? And what are lookalike audiences? They are essentially audiences that look like your audience, right? So if you have a file of, let's say, 100 customers, right? The people who've signed up previously. You can use that information, their email, their phone number, and you can upload that to Facebook. And then Facebook can then be like, oh, okay, we want more people like those 100. Let me go search and look for those, right? So that's number one reason. Second reason, if you have a CRM in place, then it allows you to better contact leads, right? The problem with going direct to either Messenger or direct to Instagram, it usually results in lower quality leads, just from what I've tested and what I've found. It just doesn't really convert on the back end, right? So let's jump into the actual creation of the form. You want to name your form something rememberable, or something that you can easily identify, right? So the way I normally do it is company name, so Zento, and then maybe you can have something on there. I mean, feel free to make your own template. I normally just do a Zento and then the date, because then I can kind of see, right, what's the newest one that I've just created. The reason why you want to name these, especially if you do have a CRM system like Go High Level, is when we come to the next video that I'm going to do, where it comes to integrating your Facebook into Go High Level, you want to be able to visualize what forms you're integrating, if that makes sense, because you don't want to be integrating the wrong form with the custom fields and things like that, and then you don't know where your leads are coming from. Something's not working. You're not sure where to begin, right? So name your form something rememberable, whether it's your company name and then the date, like I normally do, or the format. You can have a little bit. I'm not too sure if you noticed here. Let me just show you. So here you have a Zento Bant form, and then obviously the date. So that's the kind of structure of the form, right? But feel free to title it whatever you so desire. Now I'm just going to put this in here, just so that we have it. Now, form type. I 9 times out of 10 will just leave it on more volume, simply because higher intent, as it says there, requires leads to verify their phone number with a one-off passcode. Now, as I keep mentioning in my videos, the number one thing you gotta keep in mind whenever creating a form, whether it's on Facebook or whether you're doing a funnel type or a landing page kind of conversion event, the more hurdles you put in front of someone, the harder it is for them to convert, if that makes sense. So because we're dealing a lot with cold traffic on Facebook, you've got to remember that the more kind of obstacles you put in front of someone, the less likely they are to finish the form and actually convert into a lead. Now, that's okay if you want only high intent, high quality leads. That's absolutely fine. But just be aware of the fact that you're going to see some drop off in results when you do that, right? So your cost per lead might jump from 10 to 15 pound all the way up to 30, 50, £100, right? And that's all right if that's all you want. right? If you just want high quality leads all the time and not really worry about, you know, the cost per lead, that's absolutely fine. What I've found works best is a mixture of both, right? So having maybe 2 to 3 questions on your form just to filter out any time wasters, and then having the combination of appointment setters, or if you're calling them up yourself, qualifying them on the appointment setting call, right? So you're getting best of both worlds. You're getting a low cost per lead, and then you're also having to qualify them on the appointment setting call. It just allows for more volume, but you're still getting the best of both worlds, if that makes sense. So I would keep it on more volume. Rich Creative is something I haven't yet tried. So this is, if you have to obviously detail a little bit more about your business and about your service, this is probably going to be a little bit more up your alley, because you can have a lot more information on there, right? That would probably be good if you have, you know, a lot of information that you need out there for people to visualize, to look at. If you have a lot of qualification criteria, this might be for you. Like I say, it's not something that I've tried, so feel free to give it a go if you so wish. Now, more volume, flexible delivery. Now, this is something that I've done in the past. However, as it says here, allow Meta to adjust or remove elements based on what people are most likely to respond to. Now, this is okay if you're not necessarily, you know, very strict with your qualification criteria. If you want to ask some questions just for the, you know, just because you want some information, but you're not too fussed if they answer or not, you can go down the route of optimized, because Facebook can remove and move around questions and remove them or add them in, or do you know what I mean? So take it with a pinch of salt. I normally just go manual, because then you lay out each step that you want the person to go through, and then you know that they've answered each question, if that makes sense. So yeah, as you can see here, look, manual, lovely. It's just keep them all selected, keep them unselected, sorry. As you can see here, look, background image can be removed. I mean, this one you can keep on because it's not necessarily, you know, needed, unless you obviously have a background image that you want on there. Greeting can be skipped or shown in a different location. Again, I would leave this off, because as I was mentioning in my previous video, you want to hold people's hand through the process. And if your greeting is connected to holding their hand, and then they might just land on it, if the greeting's removed, they don't know where to go next, right? Questions and contact information can be reordered. I mean, you can keep this on, right? Optional questions can be skipped or shown at the end of the form. I would just leave that off, right? If you've got questions in there, I would just, you know, optional questions, they see that it's optional. It's, you know, there's no point in being it all muddled around and stuff, right? So I mean, yeah, I would leave it at that. Settings, if you click on the top right here at settings, obviously English US, that's fine. I don't think they have a UK one. Here, I've played around with this a little bit. I would keep it open, but just keep in mind that, say if you're a local business, you have a radius of 30 to 40 miles that you're wanting to advertise in. If someone in those 30 miles sends this to someone in the next town over, in the next city over, they can fill it out, right? Which would then put that person out of your radius, right? So it all depends on how, I mean, you probably won't get many of those, if any, right? So that's why I would suggest just keeping it on, well, on open, because you're not going to get, you know, hundreds of those at a time. You're just going to get maybe 1 or 2 in the lifetime of your campaign. So it's not like a major deal, and obviously you would just have to disqualify those people based on the location anyway. So it's not a problem. Now let's get on to the intro of things. So background image, you're going to have it showcase your ad creative, as you can see there. Use the image from your ad, or you can upload an image. This is good if you have some sort of, I don't know, if you want a picture of yourself on there, that builds trust and authority, and it also replicates your brand as well. If you have a photo of yourself, maybe a little bit of a caption on there, that works quite well. I've seen a couple forms advertised where I've clicked on it, and it does work nicely. It just always depends on obviously the image size and stuff. You don't want it to be half cropped and things not shown properly. So I mean, realistically, it's not really needed. I mean, you can always just have it use the image from your ad, because then people can see that they've clicked onto the right thing, right? They've seen your ad, they've clicked on your ad, the ad's in the background, they're like, oh, right, I'm still in the right place. Yeah. So keep it on, turn it off, completely up to you. Now, greeting. This all depends on your industry, right? I would say your greeting should be something like, thanks for your interest in our services, or something like that, right? You can also, if you're doing a local business, you could also put something like, you know, your 20% off is one click away or a few answers away, and then in your description you can say answer a few questions, fill in contact information, and we'll be in touch, right? Something short, something easy to read, right? It looks fairly nice when it's laid out like that. You know, something like that. You can always, like I say, if you're running an offer, you can include your offer in this headline, right? So if you're doing a, like a 20% off, for example, 20% off, your 20% off is only a few questions away, right? Questions away, something like that. And to be fair, I've done it wrong here. You should always do capital letters at the start of your words on the headlines, right? Don't ask me why. It just seems to work better, and it captivates a little bit more attention than if you were to do lowercase only. So that's always a good practice to do. As you see, that it looks a bit more bold and it looks a bit more like in your face, right? But you can have something like that. If you're doing a free quote, you know, the exact same principle applies, right? That always works a little bit better, I found, because then it kind of tells them, okay, I'm getting my deal in literally a couple questions, right? I'll stick around. But your description should always be something like this. You can obviously add or take away from this. Just be a little bit creative with it. Just give the direction that you want the person to take in the description, because like I keep mentioning, you want to hold that person's hand. So let's go on to the next questions. Now, you can do conditional logic, right? Where if you have certain qualification criteria, like, yeah, again, if you're a local based business, if you want to work with people who have a budget of 10 grand, right, you can have conditional logic in here, and you can add a question like, what is your budget for this project, right? And then if you have lower than 10, you can then choose to disqualify them by clicking the close form option. And then if you have above 10k, right, you can then send them to the next question, right? Obviously we would need to add another question into the form to do that, but that's something that you can do. For the sake of this video and to keep it simple for you guys, I'm just going to turn this off, because you don't necessarily need it unless you have disqualification criteria like budget, like service location, or something like that, right? It's just something to keep in mind. If you want to turn it on, then you can turn it on. If not, just have a simple form. So the first question obviously depends on what industry you're running. I'm just going to do a local business. So for example, what project did you have in mind? Now, again, this should all be capital letters at the beginning, right? Just because, again, it makes it stand out just a little bit extra. But yeah, I think if you're doing this for clients, if you run a social media marketing agency, for example, and you know they're a local based business and they're doing driveways or patios or something like that, this is probably going to be my number one first question to always ask, because it's the least confrontational, should we say. If you were to put the budget as the first one, it's a bit like, oof, right, some people might get a bit turned off by it, but you know, I suppose it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because you're already asking it further on in the questions, but you want to warm them up a little bit before you go straight in and ask for how much money you got. But I would have this: what project did you have in mind, or something similar? What kind of work did you want to have? What kind of work did you want to have done to your property, or something like that, right? And then you can have it in here: patio, driveway, fencing, for example. And then you can list, I mean, all of your services in there if you wanted to. I would always recommend maybe just focusing on your maybe core 2 to 3 services. Obviously, patios and driveways are going to be most expensive normally. Fencing can be as well, but I would just keep it short and simple. You don't want to have a whole list of every single service that you provide, because then it's just like you're scrolling through it and you just don't know it, right? You can always allow multiple responses. So if someone wants a patio and fencing done, happy days, or a driveway and fencing, or driveway and patio, so on and so forth, you can always have that. Now, a good thing to keep in mind, as I keep mentioning, the friction, the more questions that you add in, the more friction. Multiple choice are going to lead to the least amount of friction, because it's just, like I say, multiple choice, right? It's the easiest one to just click on and fill in, right? Short answers, where someone actually has to type in what they want, they lead to a bit more friction, right? Because people are lazy, they can't really be bothered to do that. So you can have a mixture of both. What I normally like to do is have maybe 2 multiple choice and 1 short answer, or 1 multiple choice at the start just to get them interested, and then have 2 short. Tell us a little bit more about the project. Or you can have, obviously, if you're a service-based business doing in the local area, you can always have, what is your postcode, or something like that, or what is your address, or something like that, right? Just because then it gets them to type it out, and in theory it gets them a little bit more qualified and intent, because they're actually having to put in a manual task, a manual action, right? But yeah, I mean, you can add, I would say, maximum 3 questions on a lead form, especially if you're doing it on Facebook, just because if you add 5 or 10, then it just gets a bit monotonous and people just won't fill it out, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, you can have multiple choice, short answer, whatever your heart desires. Now, contact information, you should always have something in here like, please ensure all details are correct. Or you can have something in here like, all information is kept confidential, just to give that bit of reassurance, but please ensure all details are correct. At least then gives them a minute to check it as well, because sometimes people input the wrong number or the wrong email, right? And then you're stuck without a way of contacting them, if that makes sense. So I would always have it in such a format where it's full name, phone number, email. Similarly, because full name and phone number is going to be your most beneficial. Obviously, they're going to have to input that email as well, but if they input their full name and then their phone number, is less likely they're going to get their phone number wrong, if that makes sense. So that is what I would include on your contact information. You can also add, street address, city, country, province, state, postcode, whatever you want. I mean, you can add all of this stuff, but realistically, it's it's one of them ones, right? This is all you're realistically going to need in order to contact that lead. If you are doing a local business and you want their address, you can always include it here, right? Street address, and then obviously postcode as well. But then again, the more questions you add onto your form, the less likely it is that they're going to fill it out. So what I would much rather do is just capture this information for now, and then on the appointment setting call, I would just call them up and ask them for their address or give them a text message using their phone number and just do it that way. Now, a little bit of a industry insight. If you're getting to this point and you're like, fuck, I don't have a privacy policy, don't worry. Use your Facebook URL. It's perfect, mate. It's brilliant. It works. It works. So literally, just open up another tab, and then just type in into Facebook your Facebook page, and just copy and paste the URL, slap it in here, and it works. Right. Now the ending, I would put something like, something like, thank you for filling out the form, and then put something in here about what's going to happen next. Now that they've filled out the form, what's going to happen? So, we'll contact you within the next 24 hours, right? Or, to be fair, alternatively, what you could do, if you did have something like Calendly or a GHL calendar where you have the ability to put in your calendar link where they can book in a call with you or book in a quotation straight away, I would do that. Just be careful though, if you do have qualification criteria, if you do put in your calendar link here, they won't, obviously, unless you call them after they book in a call, which I always recommend doing. But if they just book in a quotation or book in a call, they won't have the qualification criteria answered, if that makes sense. So you don't know if they're a qualified lead or not. So unless you're going to call them up and ask them the qualification criteria, and then determine, should I keep this quotation or should I keep this call in the calendar? If it's yes, then happy days. If it's a no, just cancel the quotation, cancel the call, right? But I mean, it's always a good thing to put in there, because then it saves you a bit of time. If they want to book it straight in, happy days, right? And then what I normally put here is book a call. And something I've done recently is just do a little bit of this, right? Because then they know where to press. And then if you are going to have a little link to calendar, I would do or book in a call below. Something like that, right? You can make it look a bit neater. For the sake of this video, I'm just keeping it a bit short, so don't put this, right? Make it look a bit more neater, make it look a bit more professional, right? If it's, booking a quote, I'd say maybe booking a consultation. Sounds a bit more professional, sounds a bit more snazzy. But yeah, that is that. Obviously, just click on create form, and then your form will appear below. And then once you have your form, it should, if it's your only form in Facebook, it should already be selected, and now you have a form. Now, the next video, I'm going to be showcasing to you exactly how to link your form up to GHL in order for you to receive internal notifications whenever a lead comes through with all their custom information, like the questions, etc., etc. Right? Hope you enjoyed. I will be recording many more videos from now on, so the next one should be the GHL workflow for that. But until then, I hope you have a good rest of the evening, and I'll be here for the long run. Speak to you soon.